All right, here we go. Third to last mini. We got two more after this. We got one little one, and then we got the big boss for Descent, and then we are done. I know it's taken me a long time, and my goal for 2022 is to speed that up. So we're going to be looking forward to that. I want to say thank you, as always, to our YouTube members. You guys make this possible. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. Can't thank you enough. If you are new to the channel, or if you are a returning watcher and you haven't hit that subscribe button, I don't know what you're doing. What are you waiting for? I don't know. Hit it. Let's go. Without further ado, let's do the Berserker. Let's go. Alright, first thing we're going to do is scraping off those mold lines, but since these are such magical minis that Descent and Fantasy Flight put together, you don't need it. We're going to prime it in black and then do a zenithal highlighting from above. I'm using my airbrush, but if you don't have this, just use spray paint. It's no big deal. Airbrush just looks a little bit better, but you ain't going to really notice. As always with this series, we're going to start with the base, and we're going to do a little base of Morghast Bone on that skull in the front. Next, we're going to hit those rocks up with some Basilicanum Grey, and you're going to notice that white is going to stick through and make that rock look like rock without doing a whole lot. We're going to try something a little bit different from that dirt. We're going to use some Guilliman Flesh. If you don't want to use this, just use Agrax Dunes or whatever you have. I'm just trying something a little new. Some Skeleton Horde magic on that skull. And for those spawns of Satan thorns coming up, we're going to use some Flesh Terrors Red, and that will do the base. Next, we're going to start on our base coats, and there's not a whole lot of base coats on this thing. There's two primary colors, the flesh and the red that is surrounding it. And we're going to start with Rakarth Flesh for obviously all of our flesh. So hit those spots up, specifically the ones that are between the cloth and around the legs and the arms. So take your time on this. You got 4 of them to do. For all of our bone and spike bits coming out of our Berserker, we're going to be doing some Morghast Bone, the same color we used for the skull on our base. And we're going to be doing just all these little areas. So I'm using a bigger brush to start off with, some ghost brushes that I backed on Kickstarter. I'm pretty happy with them, especially with the dry brushes. And then I'm going to switch to a smaller brush in a little bit for the smaller spikes on the chest and the shoulders of our Berserker. For the, I consider, focal point of this miniature, it's going to be our red cloth that our Berserker is wearing. I'm using a bigger brush, same one I used for the bones, and we're going with Mephiston Red on this. Now, if you watched the Blood Witch video, you're going to notice that I went with a corn red. I wanted them to be a more darker red, and I'm going to brighten this one up just to kind of differentiate between the two cloths. Just a little crazy. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to. You can use the same scheme I used for the Blood Witch video on that. And prior to giving our miniature a wash, we're going to be putting some of that Mephiston Red in the eye sockets, just hitting that eye, and you should be able to see that eyeball. Next, we're going to be using some Rhinox Hide for that hair. And for that lavish tongue that the Berserker's sticking out, we're going to start with some pink Horde. And finally, we're going to be using some Retributor Armour for the 2 earrings. And that concludes our base paints for the Berserker. We're only using 2 washes for our Berserker, and the first one's going to be the Carroburg Crimson, obviously on all of our red spots. Now, if you get some pooling in those areas on the front, you don't need to suck all of it out, just keep it in there. It's going to add to the depth of this miniature. For basically the rest of our Berserker, we're going to be using some Agrax Earthshade. Now, you can do this on the hair as well. I don't think I did. I wanted that white zenithal highlighting to really stick out underneath, just to give it the natural highlight that it is. I'm not going to do anything else with that hair. But for the rest of it, specifically the face, you want to get into the eye sockets and on the bones of everything, the feet, the toes, I mean everything else. Just don't try and get it in the red, but if you do, it's not going to really be noticeable, so don't really worry about it. Well, while you're waiting this to dry after you've done all 4 of them, head over to our Instagram, nerd.nights, and subscribe over there, where we are always posting new things and always new stuff. After we are completely dry, should take about 10 to 15 minutes depending where you live. I live in a dry climate, so it doesn't take that long. And we are going to hit it with a reapplication of Mephiston Red. Now, we are only doing this on our raised areas, specifically the front focal points, and we're leaving those recesses dark with the shade that we put in. The reason why we do this is going to create a nice look with all of the colors we're going to put on. So we're going to go over a vast majority of this again with this color, and then we're going to start really breaking into some highlighting. After you've covered most of those surface areas, and I know it's a little bit out of focus, and I apologize for that. I am not a great filmer. We're going to do a 50-50 mix of Wild Rider Red and Mephiston Red, and we're going to go over those same spots, focusing on the top parts of the raised areas. We're going to start creating that contrast from the darker red to the lighter red, and that's what we're creating for our focal point of our miniature, the red robes that our Berserker is wearing. And as a last final highlight, we're going to take some of that pure Wild Rider Red, and we're going to use this very sparingly on the raised areas, specifically in the front and the back, and a little bit on the hand wraps and a little bit on the shoulder wraps that is on our Berserker. For the flesh, we're going to take some Rakarth Flesh, and we're just going to do those raised areas. Bridge of the nose, the cheekbones, the forehead, cheeks, side cheeks, shoulders, and we're just not getting every single piece. We want to keep those recesses dark, but we do want to get those raised areas of the muscles, so it gives you that nice contrast look of the flesh. To reapply our base coat of our bone, we're just going to be doing some Morghast Bone. So we want to do this on the talons, all the bones on the shoulders, chest, and a little bit on the teeth and the toesies, just to get that going. That's going to be the nails of the toesies, not the toesies themselves. And we're going to just highlight that just a little bit. And to highlight up our teeth, we're going to use a little bit of Screaming Skull using a very small pointy brush. And if you're wondering what I'm using a Rosemary & Co. brush. I have a link to the description below. And obviously, full ethics statement, I do get a cut from that. So you do support that channel, this channel as well, by doing that. After that, we're going to take some Liberator Gold and we're going to hit those earrings real quick, followed by the tongue with some Emperor's Children, just to brighten it up just a wee bit. And finally, we're going to take some Wild Rider Red. That should be in our wet palette still, or your well, or your tile, or whatever you're using. Hopefully you're not using it right out of the pot, because that is not a good recipe for a good painted miniature. And we're going to put a little dollop in our eye. Then we're going to take Abaddon Black, because it's your favorite part of painting the miniature, the base, and paint it black. And that's it. That's it. Nothing crazy. I'm not trying to go overboard with it. We're just trying to make it look nice to get on the table. That is the focal point of Nerd Knight's painting. We're not going nuts. We don't have time to go nuts. You got so many miniatures to paint. You'll be like my friend Brian. You'll have a backlog of a whole room dedicated to unpainted miniatures. You're never going to get to it. And we're not trying to do that. But thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for everything. And I appreciate your donations, your support, and leaving a comment. So see you in the next one. Paint on.